So Loki season 2 is a wrap. How do I feel? How do you feel? I didn't get to record this right away. I didn't record anything on episode 5 because it's kind of what I expected. Like, remember episode 1 when I talked about the time slipping? And okay, so let's back up. Loki season 1 ends with there's Kang. If they kill him, they're going to unleash free will and endless Kangs. Kang War again. Or they take over the control of the situation and they will prevent this from happening. But season 2 opened with time slipping. Like, even when it happens, Loki's not back where he was, he's time slipping. And they spend the entire episode not resolving the crisis of all of these timelines and the fact that they call it the loom. So think of it as a funnel, right? So all the free will create timelines. They're not pruning and killing off those timelines now. They're putting them in the funnel and they can't keep up. And he's time slipping, but they deal with the time slipping. Then they realize there's like this big drama of where Renslayer is and what she's doing, and Kang, we need a Kang, and dealing with the technology and all this, gobbledygook about saving the funnel, saving the loom. And I got to be honest, none of it really mattered, because once we got to the end of the season, episode 5 and 6, it's like, well, the loom still exploded. So even though what we were trying to stop didn't work, and Loki literally has a moment where he's like, it didn't really matter. None of that really mattered. And then he's like, he's having this conversation with Kang, because he's basically ends back at the end of season 1, having this conversation with Kang. He's like, you go ahead, Loki, you go try to fix things. You go try to do differently what I've already figured out. Right. And the premise of this episode is like, well, how are we going to move forward? How are things going to move forward? Right. So let's briefly walk through the recap that they give us. And it dates all the way back to the beginning. It's OB talking about time slipping. And we're here where he basically time slips back at this moment when they try to run timely through the thing. And it doesn't work. It doesn't work. And he keeps going backwards and trying to fix things, try a different. So if I go back here and I can talk about this. And then the premise of the episode becomes like, can Loki prevent this from even happening? And he basically is going to have a crash course. He's going to spend all his time with OB. He's going to know all the different processes. How do they do it faster? And this episode is just us reliving all of this again, over and over again, with Loki taking more of control of every single scene and every single failure, right? This scene. So the one thing I can say is they were committed. They were committed that this was their story arc. They were committed that this is what they wanted to do. I was literally just like, I can't believe you wasted a whole season and now 5 episodes to get me to this point. And I'm gonna keep harping on that in a minute. So imagine all that's happening, and then we just keep going. So we're now 10 minutes in, and it just keeps failing over and over and over again. And he's just exasperated. And then his solution is, well, what if we don't kill Kang? So, all right, so killing Kang is a mistake. We can't stop all that from happening. So if we kill Kang, this is inevitable. Okay. Now what do I do? Okay, well, he's going to go back. He's going to talk to Sylvie. And it's just this constant loop of, go ahead, try not to kill Sylvie. It's like, so then you feel like he's left with this alternate. Again, we're back at the end of season 1, the conversation with He Who Remains. And you end up with this back and forth. And you feel like now option B is you don't kill Kang, you kill Sylvie. And he can't do it. So you think that's the moral dilemma, and that's where we're going with things, right? You end up in this constant. And you can see that there's moments where Jonathan Majors, as this version of Kang, is fine. Now, the Victor Timely version that we had earlier in this episode, the one that we've seen in a couple of episodes where he was lifted out of history, is the stuttering buffoon one, and it's irrationally irritating. Like, anyone who thought any of that was a good idea is out of their bloody minds. It's just unbearable. But all of this, it's just mumbo jumbo of like Lost meets Doctor Who, set in a world that feels like Game of Thrones, but it never really is. And Loki doesn't know what to do. And then you have this random scene. And this was the scene that I thought, like, what are we doing? And it just really hit me. They did not know what they were doing. They're reverse engineering their story. Like they know what the end is. And you'll see they had this as the end scene, and they've tried to reverse engineer this, and then they were told they have to have at least 6 episodes. That's pretty much what happened. I would bank on it. Okay. Because this is clearly something that we could have done in like 30 minutes. We did not need 2 seasons. So he literally goes back to have a moral question with Owen Wilson's character. And that's all this scene is. And I will say, Hiddleston is killing it. Like it's a shame that this show was not well crafted as sort of an homage and a lifting up of his character from where it was. Instead, it's basically a rewrite of his great story arc. This great story arc that went from, Thor to Infinity War. It's been recrafted into this, and we're supposed to be okay with it. I'm going to tell you 2 reasons why I'm not. So he's having the conversation with Sylvie, who, my God, every time you see her, isn't it just worse? She just looks like she looks like she is the divorced librarian at your elementary school, and you meet her during like the teacher planning day visit open house in like October, and you're like, oh my God, do you see that librarian? Oh my gosh, that's literally what she feels like to me now. So time slip again, keep trying, he can't do it, and then you get to his solution. So his solution is basically to do something that doesn't so the moment what ends up happening here is you can't get your head around what's going on. Like you're like, what is happening? I don't understand what's happening. So if you remember, we kill Kang. Now everyone has free will. Every time it acts out their free will, creates a new timeline. So you have multiple timelines. Timelines are just keeps expanding like this. So now they'll no longer fit in the funnel. The funnel can't be big enough, and it just explodes the funnel. That's that time loom thing in front of you. Okay. So what do you do? Well, you go back and you try to make a new loom. You try everything failed. What do you do? Now, it's a shame that we had to get to the final 18 minutes with credits. So let me see. Credits are. Let's see, credits are 5 or 6. So literally the last, there's 12 minutes left. So 12 minutes. And then he basically just actually embraces who he really is. And Loki just walks out there and becomes a god and just starts walking and grabbing a hold of like a physical manifestation, if you will, of these time strands. And you got to be honest. I mean, how do you not just get excited? Now, I'm not totally thrilled about the design of this part of his headwear, the crown. I like the thorn. I like the horns and stuff, but it's fine. It's definitely more Norse mythology than even what we've seen in the MCU. Basically, so he just starts grabbing strands, and of course they just think he's going to die, but he's exhibiting a power that you can't even fathom. And then he just takes the whole thing and sits on his throne, and just that's his new throne. So he really is fulfilling the Norse prophecy and all of the stuff. And Stone Loki and I had a brief conversation about this. I hadn't recorded the video yet, but he was explaining how this meant for him, like what happened in the events of Ragnarok, what happened with back when, Odin was talking to Thor and Loki, and how quiet Loki was, and he wasn't really the rebellious one until he felt as though Thor was going to inherit everything and he was going to get nothing. But that wasn't really what Odin wanted, and started to explain more. And I'm like, I think all of that is on point, and I would have to have him try to go through that conversation with you, but I feel like I don't think that's what the Marvel people do. I don't have any reason to believe that they put this much thought into it. I just don't. I mean, Yggdrasil is this cool Norse tree that everyone will now pretend that they know all this stuff about. I don't even know that much about, and I have been reading these comic books like forever. And, there's only certain people that are really, really into that are going to be able to give it the kind of justice and attention that it is, not some crazy Wikipedia entry. I just don't believe that. Nor do I believe that the people that put all this together, and particularly Eric Martin, who is the one that did most of the writing for season 2. So Eric Martin is just another writer for me. I don't know why I'm supposed to be all thrilled about Eric Martin. Like he's just Eric Martin. Like I don't know. He has done some decent episodes, but it's like I think he was tasked with this ending, and it's about rewriting things that And I will say, look, obviously it's on the nose with this, transition into the tree imagery. But then the worst part of the episode is we still have 8 minutes. And I don't know about anybody else. I just didn't care that much. My character already told me we end up having this sort of like, what happens now? Basically, what happens now is the timelines and the free will, they can exist. You can just have them all. And the tree is now a funnel. So you end up having all these different sort of like what happens now kind of moments. And I just didn't care about the epilogue at all. I only cared about what happened with Loki. And I don't think it saves the show for me. I think it makes things worse for me. And I'll tell you why. I like the fact that the seasons create some sort of story arc for Loki, but it's not as good as the original story arc for Loki. But more importantly, this seems like, and I didn't talk to Loki about this. I don't know what his thoughts were on this. But to now, it seems like, well, this is where Loki has to be, right? Loki has to stay on this throne and manage the timelines and all that kind of stuff or whatever. But Sylvie still exists. So now Sylvie can now go be the Loki in the new MCU. She can now be part of the Girl Squad to be involved in whatever they decide to do, whatever. And I don't want more Sylvie because they've never done anything interesting with Sylvie. Sylvie is, again, she is nasty, witchy, irrational, emotional. They have totally destroyed whatever physical appearance this poor woman, this actress has. They have her looking awful. Just with every episode. So I don't want more of that. And that's what I expect to get. So, if this was the entire plan, which I do not believe, I believe that season 1 ended. They didn't know what to do. They created a mess beyond that because the writer of Loki season 1 actually did Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness. And that same writer basically wrote a completely different version of how everything works. Made no sense to me at the time. And it still doesn't. I think they left all that on the table for someone else to clean up. Eric Martin was hired. This is what he came up with. The end scene is fine. It has value. I get it. The time slipping in episode 1, maybe it had value and made sense. And then all the stuff in the middle, we didn't need any of it. Complete waste of time. There you go, folks. Loki season 2 in a nutshell. I don't know what's wrong with these people, man. I feel like I'm in a multiverse. I woke up and yeah, this is where I'm at. So anyway, that's my take on it. Thanks for watching, everybody. I am Pops.
Yeah. Right?